Hey guys, Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench. Right, so a couple of things to get cleared up. Today is Wednesday the 28th of June 2023. As you know, yesterday I reviewed the Chieftain Mark 10 from Meng, which I'm doing for group build over on Luke's channel, which is Black Rifle Model Works, and he's doing a group build on the Queen. Anything that was used or made in Britain during the Queen's reign, so 1952, 2022. So I've chosen the Chieftain Mark 10 in the Berlin camo scheme, but I can't start that until Saturday because the group build starts on Saturday. The Scammell tank transporter is stalled because I'm waiting for the photo etch to come from Edward. I'm waiting for decals to turn up for the Apache so we can get on and finish that one, and I'm waiting for the cockpit to come for the A20 so we can make a start on that one. So in the meantime, I'm just sort of sat here twiddling my thumbs, and a lot of you are going to say, get on the Lancaster. No, I don't feel like working on the Lancaster at the moment, so I won't. I have been doing it off camera, but and you will see very shortly what I've been doing. So with all the talk of submarines at the moment, I thought I'd do this, and this is a lovely little kit. Wendy bought me, Wendy Hickson, thank you very much, Wendy. She bought it for me a while ago. I did a review of it, and it really is a lovely little kit. It's the first successful submarine. When I say successful submarine, it was the first submarine to successfully sink another ship. So there we go. It actually had two, I think it sailed twice, I think, and all crew were lost, and they managed to drag it back up and get the crew out and clean it up and get it going again. And yeah, it's actually man powered. They sit in there. Go look it up on Google. CSS H.L. Hunley. Fantastic story. The thing has been dragged up and restored now, and it's available to see in the museums. So it's 35th scale. It's made in the Ukraine, and it's a very simple kit. So I thought it would be great as a little interim, just for something to do. You can see it has very few parts. Everything is in one bag. We've got the instructions here, tiny little instruction sheet, and as you can see, not really much to it at all. So it should be a pretty quick build, and it's not all fancy painting and weathering and everything as well. Now what I have done this morning, just to check, just before I thought I'd start this, because we all know what it's like. Sometimes you think, oh, it's a quick build, it won't take 10 minutes, and then you find that the hull halves are different lengths and warped and twisted and God knows what, and it's going to take a week just to get the seams done. So what I've done, I've come around and I've got a 400 grit sanding stick. I use one of my zebra sticks here, and I've just gone around and I've sanded these faces. You have to be careful here, they've got two marks. They've got like a V and a U. I'm assuming that's Ukrainian left and right, and that'll be on there for packaging purposes to make sure you don't get both of the same side. So yeah, so we've got those hull halves going together, and they do go together actually quite nicely, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. We also have interior detail, which is nice, so if you wanted to scratch build all the mechanism and put some blokes in there, you could cut the side away and have the interior showing. Otherwise it's not going to be seen, because as you can see here, the portholes are tiny. Well, they're 2mm, and there's some of these are 1.6mm, so you're not going to see much. I was thinking of spraying the inside white. I don't really see much point, because when it's closed up you're not going to see anything in there, so probably won't bother with that. So that's all done. We've got the diving planes and everything. We've got parts for the stand. As you can see, we've got some flash on there. We've got this here. This is the explosive charge, which is brass. So that's what I'll glue together first, so that can go hard and the seam can sort itself out, and then we can give that a lovely polished brass finish. We've got photo etch here for lots of it. You can see the propeller blades are photo etch. We've got the spike that sticks into the side of the ship at the front there. That's in photo etch, and we've got the hatches, hinges. We've got some fillets that go in here. Not quite sure what they're for, but they're there for a reason. And then you've got these bits here which have to be rolled around to make this part here. So this part here is going to be rolled around PE. So that is all going to look lovely, I think, as long as it all goes together okay. And we've got a stand there which has got some detail on the inside and nothing on the outside. Strange. So anyway, it's a lovely little kit, and I talked about this submarine on one of my videos, and Wendy responded by sending me the kit. So thank you very much, Wendy. This build's for you. So I guess we better crack on. So the first thing I want to do is get these holes drilled out. Now, as you can see in the instructions, it it's not that clear. They're telling you to drill it. It's not 2.7 or 27 or whatever. What they're telling you is you drill it and then part 27 goes in. And as you can see on this clear sprue, just get it out of this little bag. We have masks in here as well, which is a nice touch. You can see on this clear sprue, you hold it this way up and you can see from the instructions we have 25 across the top, which are the main portholes going in the top, and then we've got these 27 across the bottom, which are the small ones, and they're going in the sides there, and then we've got 26 on the sides. I've measured them, they all seem to be like 2mm and 1.6mm. I'm not going to use them, probably because they're going to be difficult to get in there nicely. What I will use for my portholes is, where's it gone? Here it is. Crystal clear, micro crystal clear. Get a bit on toothpick, just go in there round. Beautiful job, and we will have nice clear flat flush windows. The hatches are made in clear, which is great, because all that means you've got to do then is just mask off that little circular area there by the end of my finger, and the rest will be painted, so that's all cool. So I guess we best get started. We'll put this away. I don't really need to, because it doesn't really matter if it gets scratched, because none of it is going to be used or seen. So the first thing we're going to do is get these halves glued together. This is our charge. Now this is what they call a short run kit. I'm sure it's not a short run kit. I'm sure it's going to be in production for a long time. But I'm just going to get these sprue nibs off. And as you can see, the sprue nibs go onto the faces, so be careful. Yes, so as I was saying, it's a short run kit. It's not the sort of thing you're gonna, because it's simple, doesn't have many parts, you mustn't automatically assume it's a great starter kit. It's not. Something like this would put a beginner off forever, because it's going to need a lot of work with seam work and stuff like that. And for the beginners out there that want to learn something, I suggest you perhaps watch these videos, because you'll probably learn something from it, because it's going to be some quite difficult correcting and filling to do. So we'll get these two halves together, and as you can see, lots of sanding, and even then I've still got a gap here. So what I'm going to do is get a coarser stick and just very gently, I'm not putting any pressure on it, just going to gently sand that over there, and then sand this one here, and then hopefully now it will go together nicely. And I'm going to put it, you can see we've got the sprue nibs here sticking up. I don't ever bother removing the sprue nibs if there's two halves being together, because I'm going to come and sand the seam anyway, so why risk ruining the nice flat surface? So we'll get the set it so the sprue nibs are together, and then at least we've got one nice side which has no sprue nibs, as you can see there, and the other side is a bit of a mess. Now there's no location pins or anything, which is common for a short run kit. It's not a problem at all. So what I'm going to do is grab my array of Tamiya paints. I've got a proper frog in my throat today. I'm just going to put a drop in one end, just give it a squeeze, and then what I can do is have a look and make sure these panel lines kind of line up. It's easier to sand an end flush than it is to try and mess around getting panel lines lined up if you've got them misaligned. You know, they sort of go like that across the joint. So we can brush some cement down there, let the capillary action take the cement in. There we go. And we also want to make sure, get a pair of tweezers, give it a squeeze there, make sure the parts are like this, not like that, because that makes it a nightmare to sand. And this applies to anything you're making cylindrical, a gun barrel, an aeroplane fuselage, bombs, drop tanks, you name it, anything that's cylindrical, this is what you need to be doing. And as you can see, you know, we've got like a trench in there where the parts sort of come along, instead of meeting straight, they come in like a trench, so I'll be filling that. But this is why I've done this first, because this is two halves going together, and we can now leave that to dry, and then when we need it, it's all nice and hard, ready to sand and everything. If you glue it if you wait, I've said this so many times, if you wait until you actually need it, you glue it together, and now you've got to wait a few hours at least for the glue to go off before you can come back and work on it. Unless, of course, you use super glue to glue it together, but then you run the risk of it cracking. So, pays your money, it takes your choice. So that's that done. Let's have a look at what we're going to do next. Right, so a couple of observations. There is flash. You've got some holes in the back of the fuselage. I keep calling it fuselage. In fact, the submarine is a fuselage, isn't it? It's not a hull. I can't remember now. Never mind. I'll call it both. That'll satisfy everyone then. There's a couple of holes in here which are flashed over, so just come in with a knife and just sort of knock the flash out of those, just like so. I've also just noticed there's a load of flash around that hole there, so we'll just cut that out of the way. And I've also noticed when you come to here, there's this little piece of photo etch that goes in, and that's holding this big rod, which is the main support for the charge. That's the ramming rod, which is here. Great big ramming rod there. So it's got this little photo etch bracket here that goes in there, and you can see on the hull, moulded on both sides, you've got this there. So I'm thinking it's what comes out the middle. So we need to sort of just relieve. I just want to relieve the hull at the front. Just make a couple of marks there so I know where it's going. It doesn't matter because it's going to be going in with super glue, which will act as a filler anyway, so if you do sort of mess this up a bit, it doesn't really matter. But just want to pick up on those marks, just like so. And then where I've done those scores, just come in with the knife and just shave away some plastic. Now when we glue it together, it's probably going to get filled with molten glue, but at least we'll have something there that will make life a bit easier when it comes to fitting that piece of brass in there. We'll have like a bit of a void that will have some glue in it, but it won't be like solid plastic. So we can do that there, and just pick it up on the groove I've just made on the outside, and do that there. And now we can see we've got lines. So we can just come in and just scrape some plastic away, just to make like a recess in there. There we go, and you can see now there's like a cutout in that area. You could just scrape some plastic away from there, or just leave it and go in with a small drill, but I'd rather just have something there so we got something to push it into. Right, so the hull halves are going to go together like that, but before we do that, I'm going to do the portholes so that I can deburr them from the inside. So the first thing I'm going to use is this tool. This is just what comes with the older tool sets you used to get. And what I want to do is find the center. So what I'm doing is looking at this hole here, and I'm just visually finding the center as close as I can. Okay, so we'll just do two. I'll do the others off camera. And I know from measuring the clear parts that are supposed to go in here that these are actually 2 mil diameter. So just moving that one over a bit. There we go. And then I'm just putting that drill into there, keeping it perpendicular to the surface. I can just drill through. That's a 0.7 drill I've used there. Let's just do the same on this one. Okay, and then we can have a look, and we can see straight away that they are both, if we look at it like this, oh no, that one's pretty good, it was the shadow making it look bad. This one is off sort of towards 2 o'clock. So I'm just going to use a knife and just pull that hole over a bit. Because when you drill, a drill will always follow the easiest path, which will be the hole that's there previously. So if you just went in with a bigger drill, you just make a bigger hole off center. So you need to make the hole where you want it. Okay, so it's not actually a very sharp moulding, so it's making it very difficult to see. The whole thing's not very sharp. You can see all this rivet detail here is a bit sort of all over the place, but I should imagine that in reality it was all over the place. So in here I've got a 1.2 drill. So as you can see, I go in there now, and it goes through really easily, and we've now got that hole back on center. This one I think is good anyway. So if you just go through there and have a look, and as you can see, they're both pretty good. Okay, so I think that one needs to be just moved over a touch towards 7 o'clock, just a little bit. And then what we'll do is go in with a progressively bigger drill. So we'll take that 0.7 out. I'll come in with a 1.4, like so. If you work your way up, it takes time, but that's what modelling is all about. It's all about taking your time and having a bit of fun and getting it right. It's the satisfying part. Anybody could just tear in there and drill any old holes. So you can see now they're pretty good on centre. Okay, so I'll go on and do the rest, and then I'll come back and tell you what I've done. Okay, they're all done. You see they're all drilled. I've done these 1.6 and I've done these 2mm, so I just think they look better a little bit smaller, those ones in the side there. So I think that one's actually supposed to be 2mm, so I best guess I put that, yes I did, I put that 2mm drill back in that chuck. So no, that one there is definitely smaller, it's 27, so that's okay, yeah. Right, so they're all done. They're not really going to notice anyway at the end of the day, because it's all going to be very, very dark grey or black. So looking at how this goes together, you can see that where I did that little opening in the front there, you can see that we've got like a gap there now, just in front of my finger, so that allow a photo etch to go in. So basically what I want to do, the most important part to me is these lines here, where we've got these sheets of steel rolled. There's a join line between them, a panel line, and I want to make sure they're lined up, because if you get it sort of, you can see the panel lines there, if you get it kind of like that, okay, exaggerated, then it's a nightmare. So I want to get those lined up. So what I'm going to do is grab a couple of clothes pegs and just temporarily peg the ends. And what we can do is slide it about like so, until we've got them nice and flush. We want them to be level, we don't want them like this. Okay, so if this is the fuse that the hull has, we don't want to do that, we want to do that. We want them as good as we can get them, to minimise the sanding and filling and everything. So I'm just running my fingernail across there, I can feel a step that way, so I'm just going to lift this side up a touch. And now you can hear I put my fingernail across there and it feels the same both ways. So that's good. And then here, just need to come up just to remove that step. And I'm gonna title this video "Great for Beginners to Watch." It's not a great beginner's kit, but it's great for beginners to watch. So I've got it nice and flush now, but as you can see the panel lines aren't lining up, so I'm just going to give it a little twist. As you can see, we've got a bit of a mismatch here, but it's easier to sand, fill, blend, whatever that, than it is to get those panel lines to line up. So that's what I'm doing, I'm making sure they're up. Now I've lost the... That's all nice. Again, this applies to model aircraft, fuselages, this applies to drop tanks, bombs, anything that's cylindrical. Okay, so that's that done. So what I can do now is get some cement in there. So I'm going to put a couple of drops of extra thin in, and that'll capillary along. I'm using extra thin. I'm just putting a small amount in just to get it to tack it in place. If I used quick setting or super glue or something, I wouldn't have the time to play around with it and move it. So I'm just looking now, those panel lines are lined up lovely. I'm just going to check now, is the surface nice and flush? That needs to come up a touch there. As you can see, just run your fingernail along, and what you should feel is, you'll feel the joint, but it should feel the same both ways. Now I'm doing this here, there's a step that way, so that means this side needs to go up. Let's just give that a little tweak. And it's really worth taking the time now, because it will save you ages when it comes to filling and stuff like that. As you can see, I'm not doing the whole thing. That's the only bit I care about, is this bit here, because this is the most important bit. This bit here, glue that together, absolute doddle to sand. This bit here, glue that together, doddle to sand. Underneath, well, it's underneath. It's this bit here that's critical. And it does actually feel like this it's actually wavering. And you will hear me criticise this kit because of its short run status. And when I criticise the kit, I am in no way ungrateful to Wendy for buying it for me, because it's gorgeous. It's just a case of letting you guys know, if you want to get one, this is what you're letting yourself in for. Okay, so what I'll do now is grab some Tamiya tape. We'll get the 10mm, wherever the 10mm is. It's hiding. Got a couple of pegs in there, they shouldn't be in there. So grab a decent length of Tamiya tape. I've done this once the glue's been on there for a few seconds. You can do this safely. But don't ever do this and then glue, because the glue will capillary under the tape. Same with rubber bands. Okay, so that's all taped together now. That's all good. That's all good. There we are. As you can see now, we've got a fairly nice joint. Which shouldn't require too much sanding. I've got a feeling I'm going to be sanding these rings around these portholes away and replacing them. I've got a feeling. I can't see any way around that. Right. Bit more tape on here, I think. Because it's this side is going up in the middle and this side is going down, or one side straight and one's going up or down. That's better. There we are. So we'll leave that to dry for half an hour, and then we can come back to it and see how it looks when it's dry. So here we are about half an hour later, and it's had a chance to sort of go off a bit, so that's all good. So now we can concentrate on the stern and the bow, and obviously we're going to concentrate on the top, because the top is more important than the bottom. And as you can see, if I hold the top in line there, we've got quite the little step down there, so that's why we concentrate on the top. The bottom can wait. So and for the beginners out there, something to be careful of when you're clamping with pegs. I mean, these aren't that strong, so it's not going to matter. But when you are doing stuff like this, like trailing edges on wings or whatever, you're doing rudders and stuff, always, if you're going to clamp it on the edge, don't clamp up here, because what you'll likely do is the parts are like this, and when you clamp here and here, you do that. You end up pulling them in. So basically you do, if you look at the end, you can see as I squeeze it here, it opens up. So you can use that to help when you're using capillary action to get your glue to go in. But other than that, don't do it. Right, so I've got this held together. So I'm going to run some extra thin. If you hear some rattling, what I'm doing, I'm shaking the glue bottle to get some glue onto the brush. I don't do this, I don't see the point. Right, so that's that done. We can look at the end there and we can see that we've got this here is even. Ignore the hole in the centre, you need to look at the outside profile and make sure that they're lined up, because it's a lot easier to sand that than it is that. So that's all good, like that. So we can get a peg, we'll get some glue down in there. We need plenty in there because it's a very large area that's got to be glued. Right. So again, we'll look at this, make sure it's all looking good and even. There we go, we'll get a peg on there, and then we'll get a piece of masking tape, a couple of pieces of masking tape, one there, over the top, pull it down, one there, over the top, pull it down. There we go, we've got the peg on the edge. In fact, what I can use are these little bulldog clips, I think they're called. So we'll get those on there. That's better for holding that together. Right, so that's the stern done. I'll get the bow done, which is exactly the same, so you don't need to see that. And then I'll be back when that's started to go off. I've done a little bit of work off camera. I've put this box together, and this box is what goes up on here, and it's where the breather tubes go. So basically you have these two parts here, 9 and 10. You can see the little sort of half rectangular boxes. And then you have 14 and 22, along with 17 and 20. You're going to glue on the sides, and they are on here. You can see the sprue has no numbers on it. The numbers are all on here. Okay, so they're basically going to go on the sides. There's 14, there's 22, and then there's the two mounts there. So they're basically going to go on the side, so we can position them first, get them all nice and square, and then put the tubes in. This here is 9 and 10, it come off the sprue, and they've got massive sprue connection points. So one of them took a chunk out of the plastic, as you can see there. It's kind of hard to see which way they go, but if you look at that, you can see that one side, you can see that this edge here is flat. The one in the middle, if I have something to point with, that one there is flat, and this one here has a slight curve to it, so make sure you get them like that. What I did was just push them together on the bench and then glued them, and then went in with a skinny stick and just sanded this to get the radius back even on there. And that is basically going to sit on top of there like that. As you can see, the black is the VMS black thin super glue, and I use that as a filler. And you can see I've also done it on the explosive part here. I'm not sure what it's called, it's a depth charge or whatever. So that's all done. I've gone round and scribed in the panel lines. So I've also gone along with some super glue in the gaps here, in between the rivets and in between those portholes, so that I can just literally come in with a skinny stick and just sand them without worrying about damaging any detail. So I'm going to look at all this afterwards when I know the glue's all solid and nothing's going to move. There's nothing worse than dealing with it and then you find it's moved where the glue's settled or something. So I've just noticed there's some flash along there, which I'm just going to trim off. Okay, and then we're going to deal with the ends here. You can see there's some slight misalignment on that island there. So we can get our skinny stick and sand that out. In fact, I think I might need a bit of filler in there, so we'll put the filler in there first and then sand it out. But basically what we can do now is start looking at the bottom. Now, as you know, we've done the bow and the stern. Again, there's been some super glue put in here on the top and then sanded out. I haven't done anything about the actual bow yet. So what we can do now is look at getting the bottom together. Now you'll notice it's got this flat bottom, which is not exactly flat. It's got lumps and bumps all over it, but it's supposed to be a flat bottom. And the other thing to notice is it's like concave. Like I show you there, you can see there that it's not dead flat. So what I've been doing is come along with a rule and just try and bend it. You can see it sounds terrible, but it's not. Just as long as you support it and try and sort of bend it up and get it straight. If you remember, that Apache was the same. That Tacom Apache. So that sort of helps it to go flat. It'll probably just go back, but all we're going to have to do is get loads of filler in there or something, loads of super glue, sand it flat and then rescribe it. But we want it nice and flat so it sits in the stand nicely. But the main thing is to get it all level. So get it level here and here, and then the middle can sort of do its own thing really. So what I'm going to use some extra thin quick setting in here just to kind of lock it. I'll get some in there as well. What I want to do is get this level here. So there we go. So that's nicely together now. And I wish I'd taken some tape off, because if I let this go now it's going to move. Oh no, that quick setting really is quick setting. It's quite warm. It's about 21 degrees today, so everything is drying too fast. And we may as well carry on down here as well. Get some glue in the gap, give it a squeeze, and it'll capillary along. Plenty of glue in there, get a good weld action going. You want it to be nice and strong. And we're not too worried about steps and stuff on the bottom because we just sand them out. But as long as we've got this here flat, yeah, it has moved. We get that so they're both level. There we are. So I'm going to get some masking tape off quickly before that moves again. Get that on there, put it over, job done. Just check that it's staying level. I should do exactly the same here. Let that dry and then I'll come back and we'll do this bit in the middle. So that's all done. So that's the stern and the bow done. We're going to have to get some super glue in this gap at the back here. We've got a bit of a gap in there to fill. Maybe I should have sanded some more off, I don't know. But, anyway, it's not really going to be seen because it all goes in. It all goes in behind all this here, so you can see there is quite an edge on there, so I guess it's okay. This bottom here now, we need to get it flat, and as you can see we've got quite a step there and it's all a bit sort of higgledy-piggledy, so I'm going to go to the middle. I'm going to use my rule and I'm going to get it as flat and level as I can. As you can see there is a slight sort of bow in the middle, but I'm going to hold that there and I'm going to do something you should never do. I've got a bottle of super glue here and I'm just going to put a blob in there like so. You should never do that straight out of the bottle. You run the risk of making a right mess. And then I can grab a cotton bud and just remove the excess, and that will lock it together. Just going to hold that, and we're only going to do that area there with super glue because the rest of it I want welded, because a welded joint with Tamiya extra thin is much stronger than with super glue. There we go, that's locked together now. and it's pretty much level all the way down as good as we can get it. It looks like there's a bit of a step appearing there. Oh no, it's because there's a lump there. So as you can see, it's pretty good, not bad at all. So we'll get the lead back on the super glue before that dries up, and then we'll get our extra thin and we'll get that in there and let that do its thing and weld that joint together. Remember, if you're using super glue and extra thin, always use the super glue first. Otherwise, if I come along now and try and glue this with super glue, I'm actually gluing a molten mess. I'm not gluing the plastic together, so bear that in mind. Quite why you would use the super glue afterwards, I do not know, but always worth remembering. Okay, so that's that done. I don't know if I can get some pegs on there. I don't know if they'll stay on there. Yep, they will. So we'll get some pegs on there just to help hold it all together. And we'll leave that to dry. Story of my bloody life, isn't it? So with this box, as I say, we've got these two pieces here, 20 and 17 going on. They're going to go on the sides, but there's no actual location for them, but they do have a hole in the middle of them. So what I'm going to do is mark this out and then drill it and pin it so I can make sure they're in the same place, so that when the breather tubes go on, they're sort of square, they're not all like this. So what I've done, I've got a magic marker pen and just made a spot on there, as you can see. I've measured the width of this here and it's 10.78, so half of that is roughly 5.39, isn't it? So 5.36. Okay, and I'm just going to make a scratch using these calipers. Just make a scratch in the surface, and if you come in from both sides, if you end up with two lines, you just aim for the middle in between the two lines. You can see we've got a scratch line there now. So if we do the same on the height, so the height there is 4.8 and the height there is 4.8, brilliant. So half of that is 2.4. I'll do 2.41. What I'm going to do is just from the top, let's just scratch a line in like that, and now I've got my centres marked, so I can come along again with this pointed tool that we used before, make a spot mark, drill it through, put a pin in there temporarily, piece of brass or something, and I can position them perfectly square and level because there's no location for them whatsoever. So I'll get them off the sprue, get them cleaned up, and then we'll come back when we're ready to fit them. Right, there we go. Piece of brass rod through there, drilled through 1.2 millimeters. So they're all in there now, and I also made some horizontal lines as well so that I could get those teardrops sort of lined up nicely. So there we go. So that's all nice and square and everything. The other thing I did, I got my calipers and came in, pushed it up against the back there, locked it, just checked again, and then turn it around, do the same on the other side, just to make sure everything is good. And now we can just pull the piece of brass out, and they're in position now, and their holes are ready to fit those tubes onto when we're ready. So I can put that piece of brass back in the scrap bin, the spares bin should I say. So this is coming together now. I think I'll run some Mr. Surface around there to get that joint nice, because it would appear that on a lot of these parts, where you've got parts where it's like two halves, which we don't have anymore, it seems like instead of like if this is the half here, this is like the half and this is the other half, instead of like that, they're kind of like this on the ends, they're kind of turned in like a soft edge. You can see it here, you can see it on the hull, you can see it there. So it does seem like we've got some problems there. So anyway, I'll probably get some Mr. Surface around and then remove the cotton bud. So onwards and upwards. I don't know what's going to come next. Hey then guys, so I've taken the clamps off of here, I've done the Mr. Surfacer around there. I'll get that off with the cotton bud in a minute. And I've put some super glue down the middle of here, put some activator on there that go off. Now what we're going to do is take a black marker pen and go along the edge of here. And you might be thinking, why are you doing that? It'll all become clear in a minute. Let's go along there. Along there. Just like so. And then with a sanding stick, keeping it flat, just come along. You can see straight away that we're touching that edge. So you can see just how much filling we're going to have to do in there. And it's quite a lot. So what I'm tempted to do is kind of sand away some of this edge and sort of go 50-50. I'm going to get a coarser stick. There we go. Right. Just like that. That should keep us pretty flat and level. But you can see there, you've got a lot. We've got a lot of sanding to do and a lot of filling to do. So I may just use super glue. I may actually use some filler, but we do want to get it nice and flat, really. So there we go. Let me have a little think about what we're going to do, and I'll go from there. And there we go. And you will straight away notice we've got a large amount in the middle and nothing back here. And what I noticed was I was going with the sanding sticks and it wasn't really touching this area. So I got a straight edge. I'm going to put a straight edge on there. You can see, you probably can't see, but it's actually not flat. So it's actually bowed that way, only slightly. So what I did, I put it on a piece of flat 400 grit, wet and dry, and sanded it like this. Now I wouldn't normally recommend doing that because what happens is that the wet and dry lifts as you're sanding and it will give you a soft edge, but this has already got a soft edge here and here. So I just went forwards and backwards like that. So and then I've had to finish off with a fine sanding stick because obviously it wasn't touching in the middle. So done that, went round with the black pen and just keep going till all the black pen comes off. And now I've gone round afterwards with Scriber and I've scribed those lines. So we can see now that we have basically a nice flat bottom. So what I'm going to do when I'm ready, when I've got all this done, I'll give the edges a quick grey primer, just a very, very light coat. And then when I sand it, if we see any black spots fitting through, then we'll know that we've got low spots in here. But the little white spots you can see are little bits of plastic that were sticking out. So it's also, I've got these clothes pegs on here which make it easy to stand up. So there we go. So we can remove the tape from here now. In fact, we'll put the tape to one side in case you want to use it again. Waste not, want not. And then we're good to go. So we can get that tape off of there. That's all coming off of there now, look. So the sanding stick, just come in and just sand that down nicely. Get some better lighting here. There we go. So we just come and sand that down nicely now. I'll put a drop of super glue in there as a filler, and I'll do the same on this lower edge here. So and then with a sponge, or I'll use one of the big sponges. I'll use a, this is an 800 grit, it's a 600 grit sponge. That'll put a nice radius on there now. There we go. We can do the same back here, coming with a hard stick first, and that'll get rid of any irregularities. Big word to say, haven't I? And there we are. I got to put some super glue down in there as a filler, and I think I'll get some in there as well. So my plan is to get a video of this out every day, and hopefully get it done in about 3 or 4 videos. Because once we get all this hull done, the rest of it's going to be quite quick, I think. This up here is going to take the time, and I probably won't film that. So I'm going to go around now, deal with the rest of these seams, and then I'll come back when the hull is all done. Oh, just to let you know, where's those pegs gone? For scribing here, I've got a little square, and I was able to put the square on the model like so, get the scriber in the old groove, and then just scribe across. So that's what I've done with the old Tamiya scriber. These things are the best scriber you'll get for dragging out stuff. If you actually want to scribe, like where you're cleaning out scribing, there's all sorts of different scribers, but you're actually dragging, and these are actually called an alpha P cutter. You can see there it's got alpha on it. We call them Tamiya scribers, but it's actually an alpha P cutter, and it's designed for cutting plastic card. You actually score the card and then snap it. But people decided to start using them as a scriber. So that's those cleaned out, and we'll see what they look like with some paint on them, and then if we need to go over them again, we will. So I'll get the rest of this done, and as I say, I'll come back and see you when the hull is basically seam free. Okay, so there we go. We've got the seams all covered now in Mr. Surfacer Grey Primer sprayed on. And as you can see, it's all looking really nice. And we can see that we got these lines here which are scribed across. And you can see that one there is slightly lighter than the others. So I'm going to grab my Tamiya scriber, just lay it in the groove, and without putting any pressure on, I'm just going to open it out. Yes, you did see that right then, the tool went off slightly to the right. It hasn't done that again, so it should be okay. Just finish off that in there, and we can see that they're all slightly lighter in the middle than they are at the end, but I mean it really doesn't matter because it's the bottom. It's going to sit on this plinth, you know, but it's just good to show you guys how I deal with seams. So you can see down here is all pretty good. You can see we've got an area there, and this is what I've said in countless occasions. You can use grey primer and it will always show up any areas that need attention. You won't see it with black. You pretty much won't see it with grey. You can see there we've got a sort of continuation of that flange coming down there, so we need to just come in with a knife and chop that out, and then get in there and sand that, so get a nice sharp end from the sort of that support, whatever it is there, down to the nose cap. Nothing like that going on the back, but we have got a bit of a flat spot there, so we'll come in with a sponge and just sand that out. As I say, it's a brilliant way of checking all your seams. So obviously along here, now where we've sanded it, it's looking good, but in between the portholes I've got little raised areas. So what I'm going to do there, I'll put masking tape over these portholes and rivets and try and get in there with the end of a sanding stick and just remove it. I think here, I'm going to have to scribe. I'm going to have to scribe these partitions in. Yeah, the tool went off there, so we come back the other way. There we go. And there we are, that's them done. And there's another one there. As I say, at the end of the day, it's all going to be painted sort of black or very dark grey, so it doesn't really matter. But you know, if you put a wash in there, now you can see what's happened here. That's good in a way, because I can show you how I repair it. You can see that we've got sort of a double line in there, and it's like either side. But I'm going to have to replace some of this rivet detail, I think, because as you can see it's very soft here and it's quite pronounced there. So I'll knock out some little plastic discs from 10th How Card and glue them on, and then sand them back to sort of blend in. But I think they're kind of all uneven, and I think they're supposed to be uneven. I think that's probably how they were back in the day. But we've got these tiny little rivets around these portholes, and I really don't want to lose them. But I do want to sand out these seams in the middle. So what we'll do, we've got the little islands there, they're looking okay. Yeah, I've already dealt with that one there. So yeah, it's all looking pretty good. But as I say, just remember, the grey primer makes everything jump out. So if there's anything there that's not quite right, the grey primer will make it jump out. So if it's an area where you're going to go in afterwards with black, you will probably find you'll get away with it. If it's not perfect or whatever. But you can see how flat that bottom is. We've got a couple of bits here and here that have got to be done. So we'll put some black VMS black thin in there, which is my go-to filler now because it's so bloody good. So I'll put some of that in there and that will settle down. When that dries we can sand that out. And up here I'm going to have to do some work. This here where this has gone wrong, what I'm going to have to do is come in here and be quite brutal. Do you see the static? Pull that off of there then. And put some in there. Okay, the rest of it's kind of okay. That one's got a bit of a bend to it. That one's got a bit of a bend to it as well, but I don't think we're going to see it when it's all painted. If it was going to be like light grey and we had a black panel line in there, then it would show up. But because it's going to be like a very, very dark grey, I don't think it's really going to show up. I'm not going to be putting a light coloured wash in there, but you can see that that is off. And one way to cure that, if you use a saw, this is the fine, if you use a saw, this is the Art Scale Kit saw, it's a lovely little thing. Come out of the packet. If you use a saw rather than a scriber, it will generally stay straight if you stay in the groove, because the scriber is a single point and it can sort of wander, but the saw blade is a straight tool and it will generally stay in a straight line. You can see there it's wandered a little bit. Okay, so we come with the saw. Be conscious not to touch that super glue underneath. Without putting any pressure on, you can use your saw and kind of pull it back, get it back straight again. Same on that one there, I've done all of them, haven't I? And it's probably easier to pull it back than push it forward, to be honest. So there we go, but that one there, that one went really bad. That had like a double line, so we'll have to repair that one. So we'll have to sand that out and then replace the rivets. But like I said, I'm going to have to replace the rivets here anyway. So, I'm going to have to replace that super glue there because I touched it. What tends to happen with this VMS stuff is it sort of dries on the surface and stays soft inside, and when you touch it, it's almost like pulling the skin off a fresh coat of gloss paint. It kind of leaves a crater behind. But there we go. Right. We'll get some more fill-in and work done and everything, then I'll see you when I've done that. We have been busy, guys. You know, I said this was going to be a quick build. Well, that's what I was hoping, but it's not turned out that way. The only way to get this seam sorted up here without disturbing the rivets or the porthole frames was to actually remove the rivets of the porthole frames and sand it smooth, and that's what I've done. And now we've got a nice seam-free joint on there. And now, of course, we have no raised frames around the portholes, and we have no rivets. And what I've done to make sure we don't have any sort of half sanded rivets, I've gone in and sort of chopped them away. And I can see here I've not really gone far enough down. There's some here which are, so just sort of chop them away like that, and then come over with any sort of sanding stick and just like so. And just give it a quick polish. And there we are. Keep the grooves cleaned out as well. So that's basically what we've done. So what we've got to do is replace those rings and replace the rivets. Now the rivets are simple. They're just sort of 1mm diameter, 10 thou thick plastic card. I've punched them out. They're on an acrylic sheet, and you'll see why in a minute. But I want to do the window frames first. So what I did, I made a 3mm punch, or 3.2mm punch, which is what diameter they were. And then the original plan was to punch out some plastic card and then place the plastic card over the porthole, get it central, and then you can tell I'm filming. My mum's just text. As soon as I put the camera on, my mum sends a text. Yeah, so I was thinking I could do that, but then how can I get it accurately positioned and make sure it's accurately in place? So I thought, what I better do. So what I've done, I've drilled a 2mm hole in a block of aluminium on a pillar drill, punched 2mm holes in the plastic card, and then placed the plastic card over the drill, left the drill in the hole, and then come down with this without moving anything and just punch them out. And as you can see, we've got a slight variation. We've got some here with tweezers. You've got some here which are nigh on perfect for, you know, for true, yeah. And then you've got some like where is it? You've got some that are way off, like that one there is not very good. As you can see, it's all off center, so I won't be using that one. So I've made too many, and then I can pick the best. Now to fit them, I've got these here. I got these from Premium Hobbies. I think they're in Finney. I think. And these things are brilliant. Like we often use little wooden sticks and stuff, which is great. But these are like, I think they're like 3mm diameter, aren't they? 2.5mm diameter. And what they've done is that they've etched or sandblasted the ends to give them a sort of rough finish on the ends. And they're brilliant for holding small parts. Like this here, I can stick that in there. Just push that on. And the friction of that etched area really holds the part nicely. So it's really handy, especially when you're doing things like this, where I've drilled a hole in the back of this where there's going to be a cable. And obviously you don't want to push too hard because you'll split the two halves open. But for that, you can see it's absolutely brilliant. But they're also going to be really handy for lining up these windows. So let's get a good one. So I can put that on there. I can put that on there. Then I can run some extra thin around it. And then just pull it away. And obviously once it's had some extra thin on it, it'll stay put, as I will show you now. First time I've done it. Probably can't see anything because my hands are in the way. Get some extra thin around it like that. Give it a little nudge down with the tweezers. And there we go, you can see we now have that raised area back again. Let me just give that a push down. And then when we go over with Mr. Surfacer, it'll sort of blend it all in again, so it'll be soft rather than being this hard raised edge. Or we might decide to leave it a hard raised edge. So let's just take another one, put that on there, drop it down in. I don't think you can see what I'm doing, can you? There you go. If I hold this up here, I think you can probably see what I'm doing. So I got that in there. I'm just going to put some extra thin around here. let that capillary around. Just give it a little tap down with the tweezers. And then remove that, and that's in place now. I just touch it with my finger just to make sure it's gone down. As you can see now we've got two of them in. So it's a long job making these, but it's a very short job fitting them. So I'm going to get the rest done, and then I'll come back when it's dry and we'll see how it looks. Alright, we got those window frames done. So they're all done, you can see them all on there now, and what we'll do is we'll give them a very light sanding with a sponge just to soften the edge, and then we'll go over some Mr. Surfacer just to soften them. I may actually not, I may leave them a little bit sharp, and then we can, when we dry brush it, it'll pick them up or whatever. But in fact I've put that one upside down. Bloody idiot. They've got a slight dish to them. I guess when I sand them they look okay, if not I can just sand it off and replace it. So onto the rivets. In fact I think I'll sand these before, before I do the rivets. Let me see if I can sort this one out. If I can, I'm going to have to take it off. I just want to basically soften them a bit. Soften that one as well. Yeah, I'm not happy with that at all. That doesn't look anything like the others. So I'm going to cut that one off. Just slice it off like so. Do some local sanding. And then I'm going to replace it. So I'll see you in a minute and we'll do some riveting. Okay, that looks much better. What it is, when you press them, they go slightly sort of beveled. And what I've done is put them... There's my mum again. It's every time. What did I put that one that way up, so it was almost like sort of sticking up like a petal. I want it to be the other way down, so it's like a dome. If you like, it's a very small difference, but it did notice a lot. So there we go, they're on, and they're looking good. So there we are. Right, rivets. So I got this one on this acrylic plate, and the reason I've done that, it makes them very easy to pick up. So what I'm going to do is get a knife and just spread them out so they're not touching each other. They seem to want to stick to everything. I'd love to know how heavy each one is. It's probably a 0.05 micrograms or something. So right, what we've got them some separated out now. So what we can do is come along with extra thin and just very lightly touch the rivet. And what I've done straight away, I've pushed it into another one. And I've completely ballsed this up. There we go. You get that off of there, and then you can put it down on the model, and it will go down and stay down. And then you can use a knife, a pointed tool, pair of tweezers, whatever, just to position it, just like so. Now I'm going to need to do this under my magnifier because I can't really see what I'm doing. But what I've done, I've put a pencil down around there with a piece of masking tape, so I can work up to that. So that's all I'm going to do, is just do it using that same technique. Pick one up, put it on, pick one up, put it on, pick one up, and after you've done a few you'll get brilliant at it. The other way to do it, of course, is paint a line of extra thin on and then pick them up with a pointed tool or something, or a wax pencil, and put them on. But the trouble is then is the glue will probably dry out before you get them on. So we've got that one there separated, so I can come along the extra thin, just tap it on the top, there we go, and then just place it down on the model just like so. And because the camera's on, the bloody thing won't come off. Look at that. There we go. So that's the way I do it. It's not the way to do it, it's the way I do it. I never tell you how to do anything unless it's like a conversion or something and I'm cutting away part of a fuselage to fit a resin part. You guys might want to know how to do that. And generally there's no other way to do it. So then I'll say this is how to do it. But when it comes to, like, you know, painting metallics, it's how I do it. It's not how you do it. How it should be done. It's how I do it. So as I say, I can't see what I'm doing. I'm going to have to go under a magnifier. I'll get them all done and then I'll come back and see how it looks if I don't go mad in the meantime. Okay, so I hadn't realised we've gone over the bloody hour already. I thought I was going to have this thing built in the first video. Never mind. So there we go. There's all our rivets. What's nice, if you look at the standard kit, I mean, all the riveting is sort of uneven and everything, which is cool. It's even uneven depth, so that's really good. It means you don't have to get everything nice and perfect, but you can see there. What I'll do now, I'm going to give that a coat of black Mr. Surfacer, and then I'll sand it until I see these rivets start to show through, and I'll use like a hard stick and hopefully get them down to the same sort of depth as these, because they do tend to vary. You can see here, you can see they're quite pronounced, but then when you come to here, look, they're hardly there at all. So I think that's probably intentional. I'm sure that's how the original sub would have been as well. But I think once this is done, that's going to be it. I think we can just blast forward now, because you know, once this is done and sanded out, it's just a case of bolting things together. I mean, we've done the tricky bits. That was a bit tricky, that box. We've done that. That's going to go on there like that. That fits lovely now. And then those two tubes there will go on the sides. You've got to draw the end of those out. And it's pretty much done, really. I guess these hinges for the these hatches are going to be a little bit tricky, but we're going to glue the hatches shut anyway. So yeah, so there we go. I hope you've enjoyed that. I'll see you for part 2 hopefully tomorrow. So thanks for watching. Bye for now.